What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines and rumors surrounding the Washington Wizards. So make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to drop your comments as well with any thoughts you have for me on this video or anything you want to hear me talk about in the future. Appreciate all the support here on the road to 1K. Keep tuning in every single weekday, and I thank those of you who are consistently down in that comment section. Today, I want to revisit the Deni Avdija trade. Anytime Bub Carrington struggles, it feels like this conversation pops back up. We'll talk a little bit more about Bub himself going into year two. Then I'll give you one question I have for this upcoming season and one criticism I have for the Wizards' preseason schedule. Again, appreciate all the support here on the page. And diving in today, like I said, let's revisit the Deni Avdija trade to Portland. Remember, that deal brought Malcolm Brogdon and the number 14 overall pick in 2024, of course, Bub Carrington, to DC, also a 2029 first rounder, a 28 and 2030 second round pick, or second round picks. And in exchange, it sent Deni Avdija to the Trail Blazers. And of course, with the breakout season he had last year, really carried over from his last year in Washington, and then a really good showing he had this summer at the Eurobasket tournament, it feels like really all offseason and now leading into the preseason, this has been a discussion. Was that a good move to send Deni Avdija to Portland? And as I said before, anytime Bub Carrington struggles at all, it feels like this is going to pop back up. I remember it was kind of a difficult Summer League debut this year for him. This was mentioned again after a tough start to this year's preseason. Remember, only 4 points against Toronto, didn't make a field goal attempt in that game. It's kind of showed itself up again. Bub got going a little bit in game two against the Knicks in that first half, finished with 8 points in 14 minutes, made all three of his field goal attempts, made a couple of three-point tries. But I'm not sure that even if the team didn't move on from Deni last year, I'm not sure they wouldn't have been trying to here going into this season. I think he still would have been maybe just viewed as a trade piece. No disrespect there to Deni. I don't think he's a superstar in the NBA. I don't think he's ever going to get to that point. I do think he's maybe an elite type role player, a guy that can really be a contributing piece to an excellent team. For me, his game really took off when he unlocked the three-point shot. He was a below 30% three-point shooter in year three in the NBA, and then moved that up to about 37% from beyond the arc in his last year with the Wizards. And on that extension, the 4-year, $55 million deal, pretty much the same extension Corey Kispert signed, but a year before, I really do think he would have been kind of in that Kispert territory where all summer he would have heard his name in the rumor mill, and then going into the season, he would have been a guy that's kind of looked at as a trade piece and not really a long-term player with the young core. I'm not totally sure that's fair to him. He still is only 24 years old, but the team is looking, honestly, for talent even younger than that. If you look at the roster, it's filled up with players 22 and younger. That's kind of the timeline of player that Will Dawkins and co. is looking for. So I think Deni might have been on the move, even if it wasn't last year going into this season. So I understand the trade then. Don't necessarily have a problem with it, despite his breakout with Portland. However, I will say, and it kind of leads me into Bub Carrington conversations, again, it's an important, year two for him. And he's a player that I think in the fan base, I have seen the biggest variety of reactions to his game and the most mixed feelings on what he can be as an NBA player. Some of you guys think Bub could legit be, kind of a star in the NBA, and then some people don't even think he should be in the starting lineup. Shout out my guy Live Ride 59. He thinks, get him out of that starting five. Would rather see Trey Johnson or Malachi Branham being the starting lineup on opening night instead of Bub Carrington. Now, for me, that might be a little bit far. Now, shout out my guy. He's been in that comment section a whole bunch, really, since one of the early days of this page. But Bub has to find some consistency this year. I think that's a completely fair point. While he was only one of 11 players in the NBA last year to start all 82 games, the only rookie, it felt like things kind of went like this, up and down for him. I know he closed, out the year on that really high note with the buzzer beater at Miami. And then when fast forward into the offseason, fast forward into summer league, into preseason, it's kind of been the same story. One really good game, but one, starting things off actually with kind of a struggling game. And then he bounces back with a nice performance. I think he has to find a way just to be a little bit more steady throughout this season and moving forward. Would love to know what your guys' thoughts are for Bub Carrington. Again, he feels like a polarizing player with the fan base because so many other guys in the young core, I think a lot of us agree that they have shown talent and they have shown flashes of who they can be. And now it's a matter of, can you put them in the right situation, or, is the flashes that they have shown, can they really, move that into elite production, or is it really just going to be more, here and there that we see it? With Bub Carrington, he's really the guy. And, it's not unheard of that fans in the NBA have a debate over, fairly inefficient young guards, but he's been the guy that I really feel like is debated of whether or what his future holds with the team. Kind of leads me into my question for you guys here today. What are, with Bub Carrington and his expectations going into this season, what's the leash look like for him? Again, if you're in the party that thinks he's going to struggle and it's not going to go so well for him starting at point guard, where, how long does he have that role solidly, excuse me, let's see if I can get it out, in the starting five? Because right now, I think it's clear. Will Dawkins, Brian Keefe, they're going to make him the starting point guard to begin the season. But if things don't go well, when do we see a Trey Johnson get inserted? When do we see that move get made? Is there pressure on Bub Carrington right away to sort of, perform? Are there people nipping at his heels? Does the coaching staff view it that way? I think that with the organization, there's, this is maybe less of a rush to figure this out than it is for us as fans. But I do think it's an important thing going into this year. My last point for you today is a slight criticism, to be quite honest. I want to talk about the preseason schedule. The Wizards only play 3 games in this year's preseason. From my understanding, NBA teams pretty much make their own preseason schedules to the 6-game maximum. There's no minimum on the amount of games that they have to play in the preseason. It's really one of the few places of freedom that organizations still have within the league. So my question is, why did the Wizards start preseason so late, and then why is there only 3 games on the schedule? My one attempt or possible explanation for that is just that Will Dawkins feels like, or the front office, whatever it may be, feels like, hey, we have these guys in the facility all summer, all off season. We have so many more data points than what a few preseason games against, non-starting lineups are going to tell us. So that's maybe my one possible explanation. My pushback there is that you have a bunch of young guys that you're trying to develop, figure out, who they are as players, figure out their pecking order a little bit going into this season. I think I just would have wanted them on the court as much as absolutely possible. I think, again, with the sort of a backlog in your rotation, not sure who's gonna who's going to get all of the minutes. Not sure what some of these, the progress some of these young guys have made so far in the offseason. I think I would have liked another extra couple opportunities here in the preseason. Would love to know maybe your thoughts on why we've seen so little preseason action from the Wizards going into this season. Also, would just love to see your comments down below as well. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. I appreciate all the support here on the road to 1K. You could can also hit me over on Twitter at Ben Robertson32. Thanks for watching another episode of Wizards Latest.